Speakers, the question is that the motion. I call Andrew Little.
Apologies.
Call 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a brief contribution on the Customs and Excise Tobacco Products Budget Measures Amendment Bill and the associated legislation. Mr. Speaker, as my colleagues have said, Labor supports this legislation on the grounds of the contribution it will make to health and to public health. And Labor has always been at the forefront of measures to improve health through reductions and disincentives for smoking. So we led the way, for example, with the smoke-free workplaces legislation back in 1990, and then the extension of that to virtually every other public place or place where the public gathers with the smoke-free environments legislation in the 2000s. They were very important measures. They were difficult measures because certainly for a lot of working people, having a smoke was seen as a reasonably cheap way of doing something that was pleasurable and luxurious and somewhat of an acceptable vice. But the truth is that, as we know, smoking has made an enormous contribution to negative health effects across New Zealand. It was the source or the cause of cancers, of throat cancers, of lung cancers and many others, of hypertension and a range of other medical conditions. So it was necessary, if we wanted to address those health issues, that we had to do something about smoking. And the reality is, what we now know is, when it comes to activities like smoking that come with the patina of social acceptability, is that if you increase the price of them, you reduce the level to which the activity is subscribed to, and there are improved health effects. And that's why, as some of my colleagues have raised too, it is so disappointing that this government can see the implications and the benefits for increasing the price of a social activity that has negative effects like smoking, but won't do the same thing when it comes to social activity, or at least a social drug of alcohol, because we know that alcohol has extraordinarily negative health effects. We know that price will have an impact. We know what the research says, the Law Commission tells us, but there is no corresponding gesture from the government when it comes to addressing those health issues through legislating for minimum pricing on alcohol. That's just an inconsistency, Mr. Speaker, that we're going to have to grapple with and deal with as a House. The citizenry of New Zealand look to this House for leadership. They see leadership on the smoking issue and on the measures that we take to reduce it and improve our health performance. They see us taking leadership here today with this legislation. What a pity they haven't so far seen us taking it on the measures to do with alcohol. But that debate is yet to be concluded, and maybe, and we live in hope, that there will be change in that regard as well. As I said, Labor has always been ahead on smoking issues, and I remember when the smoke-free workplaces legislation was first introduced, it caused issues for employers and for their workforce to have to negotiate their way to manage that. I remember representing many airport workers at Auckland Airport back in the 1990s, when they were prohibited from smoking in the workplace. They had to duck out the back, as so many did, for a quick shufti in the dark, dim, cold, barren places, corners that most employers had in their workplaces. But what they found in the Auckland Airport is, of course, that travelling passengers, particularly those from Asian origins, who had flown 11, 12 hours across the continent and into New Zealand, who were desperate for a smoke, a special provision was made for them to have a special smoking room in the Auckland International Airport. And it caused great problems, that the great clouds of smoke went up in the international terminal, that all the workers there who were hanging out, frankly, for their smoke, couldn't partake of it, even though their passengers travelling through the airport could. But it's interesting to see now that that smoking room has gone. And that was one measure that was taken. But the reality is, the underlying health problems that we still have with smoking have needed the last hurdle to be leapt, and that is the price hurdle. And this legislation will do that. It will have a significant impact on reducing smoking and improving our health effects. We will have to nurse those remaining dedicated, committed, and some would say, of course, addicted smokers through it, because they will have a negative response but the long-term effect will be good, and will be good for the youngsters in our community and for the diehards who will have to work their way through or pay more.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. His time has expired. I call Maggie Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Other government members have